Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Line-Miller, your host. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Farm to Plate. They are creating tomorrow's food business ecosystem today. We have a really fun topic for today. One of my favorite food groups. I know you're going to be excited to hear all about it. We have Mark Adriaenssens with us. He is the Vice President of Research and Development for North America for Barry Callebaut. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Thank you, Pam. Great to be here.
Wow, and I am so excited to hear about one of my favorite food groups. Why don't you tell us what your company does for those that might not be familiar with their name?
Yeah, so Barry Callebaut is probably the largest, because we are the largest chocolate company in the world, and we produce actually from cocoa bean to chocolate. More than 65 countries are active around the world, but are a B2B company. So meaning that we supply the chocolate or the cocoa powder that you find in your end product. So the chocolate chips in the Chips Ahoy, magnum coating on a Unilever stick, we produce the chocolate for it.
Yes, and I just think that is amazing that you're just the largest provider, but on the retail level, we don't really see your name out there like we do because you're providing, like you said, the businesses that make the food, a pretty good percentage of them, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we are always proud to say that 1 out of 4 products using chocolate or cocoa is with our products inside. And the closest we come actually to the consumer is to the professional chefs, so the restaurants, Horeca and some more. And there we have some brands like Callebaut is our top Belgian chocolate, and Toucourt best chocolate, but I'm very subjective there since I'm Belgian, if that wasn't clear. We also have like Cocoa Berry is a premium French chocolate. So but that are some of our brands that we have for professional users, and that's about the closest we come to users. So if I speak with people and they do know Barry Callebaut, it's mostly because they are working in restaurant or hotel or something, at least closer to the professional usage.
Absolutely. So I went to a restaurant that was using your product. Do they highlight that somewhere? Is that they put that on the menu that they're using? I know.
They sometimes do, and they can, in principle, a dessert made with Callebaut chocolate, the best Belgian chocolate or so. They can do that in principle, but yeah, so sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to be looking for that next time I'm going to have some chocolate when I'm out to dinner. So I'm glad to know that. Well, tell us about some of the things that are going on. Well, first of all, a lot of people love chocolate, but they don't really know about chocolate. Like there's different kinds of chocolate and how that works in the processing. I wonder if you could give us, since you are over research and development in North America, if you could give us a little bit of a window into what goes into making chocolate and a little about the process.
Oh, I would love to. It's a wonderful product. After more than 20 years in the chocolate sector, I'm still eating my daily dose of chocolate, and I still love it. So it's really literally a sweet sector. So yeah, and chocolate making is sort of magical. So it all starts with the cocoa beans grown around the equator. So in the origin countries where we also as a company are present. And then it's after harvesting the cocoa beans that are actually in a big pot, they are then fermented, and then they are dried. And again, all that and the complete process needs to be done correctly. So if they are not well fermented, you will not have good chocolate at the end. If they are not well dried, you will not have good chocolate. So it's good fermentation, good drying, and then they are ready to ship to the US or to Europe from West Africa, mainly, because that are the main producers, but can be also from South America or Asia. And then, it starts. So then we start from the cocoa beans that we roast them. And we can actually roast. And I heard another podcast on chocolate where they were explaining the roasting, and I thought I was grinching because it was honestly not completely true what they were all saying. But so in simple terms, you can or roast the whole cocoa bean and then remove the shell, because it's really the inside that we are grinding into unsweetened chocolate or chocolate liqueur.
Okay.
But we can also roast, actually, we can first break the cocoa bean, so remove the shells and roast then the nibs. So you have whole bean roasting, as they call it, or nib roasting. So once we have done that, we grind it into chocolate mass, cocoa mass, chocolate liqueur, unsweetened chocolate. It's all the same, but that's really the grinded cocoa beans. And that is what we press into cocoa powder and cocoa butter. So when you press it, you get cakes that you grind then to cocoa powder, and cocoa powder is what you would use to make a brownie or in a chocolate drink. And the cocoa butter is then actually the fat from the cocoa that is used in chocolate. And that makes also chocolate unique, because the cocoa butter has the particularity that it really melts exactly at our body temperature. So that's why it gives such a nice melt and a release of flavor.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Does it come out differently? I would think it would if you roast with the whole bean, or if you roast just what's inside the shell.
Slightly
With the
different,
shell
but
or
you
without the shell.
but you can as such match one process with the other. And historically, typically, chocolate makers were somehow doing whole bean roasting, where the producers of cocoa powder were doing more nib roasting. Nowadays, it's going a bit all directions. So you have really both. And as such, the end flavor with some adaptations of your parameters is the same.
So in this whole process of making chocolate, I mean, there are some, some standard things that need to be done, but I know there's also innovation involved there. I mean, you're trying to meet different consumer needs. Can you share how you
Well,
doing that?
because we are just at the unsweetened chocolate, getting to really the chocolate we eat. So the dark milk and white chocolate we eat. There's still a further process. So what we do is we mix the chocolate liquor with sugar for dark chocolate. We mix it with also milk powder for milk chocolate, or we take just the cocoa butter, mix it with sugar and milk powder for white chocolate. And after we mix it, we actually refine it then. It are big rolls where we bring actually the particles to less than 20 or 30 microns, where our tongue still detects actually graininess. And we want a chocolate to be perfectly smooth. We refine it, then it goes through what we call a conch or a conching process. And that's a big kneading tank where actually we remove the unwanted volatiles, the humidity, and that's where you form really the chocolate flavor fully. And then you get to liquid chocolate. Then to get into a bar, we have to temper, so get the right crystals, and then we are actually in a chocolate bar. So that is really, in a nutshell, the chocolate process. But then, yes, we do innovate a lot around, and not only the process. But one example is, we invented the fourth type of chocolate. Besides dark milk and white, we actually invented also ruby chocolate.
Which I've never heard of, so you have to explain this.
So it's actually a funny story how we got to there. We were doing fundamental research on cocoa and trying to create a sort of barcode to determine what cocoa bean would result in. And we came to a certain origin of cocoa beans, and through a certain process, it gave us a pink or pinkish chocolate liquor and pinkish cocoa powder. So, and we had something from, who's waiting for a pink chocolate? So we made then a chocolate from it. And actually the chocolate tastes very unique because you have natural fruit flavors. And because it's pinkish, everybody thinks, okay, that are added flavors, but no, naturally it gives fruity flavor, and it looks then with a pink color. So it's a very unique chocolate. people like it or don't like it. I personally like it. My wife, for instance, she's not the biggest fan, but it's really unique with a natural fruity flavor and a nice ruby pinkish color. And so it's officially now the fourth chocolate. And so we have also, I applied for a standard of identity, what is really the legal terms in the US to call it a real chocolate.
To call it, yeah, to get it categorized and identified. Yes. Well, I have never heard of ruby chocolate, and after all these years, I mean, chocolate, it seems to me, is one of the oldest foods. I don't know how long it's been being manufactured, but the fact that you're coming up with a new taste, flavor profile for chocolate, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, and it was honestly a bit by doing the fundamental research that we bumped into it, because then also marketing department went to consumer research from, okay, what can we really do with it? Because you have then a pink chocolate that, okay, tastes good. But then they found actually that a dark chocolate is really for an energy boost. A milk chocolate is for pleasure. But then there is also something called hedonistic indulgence that consumers are looking for. And that's more about new things and new adventures, etc. And within that hedonistic indulgence space was perfectly fitted. So that was actually then funny to see. Yeah, there is a space for a ruby chocolate.
Oh my gosh. Well, and also the fact that, like you're saying, it's new, innovative, makes people want to find it and try it and experiment with that. And we've had the other three kinds of chocolates forever, it seems. So, so the same old, let's go for the ruby chocolate. I love the name of it too. Instead of calling just pink chocolate, I like the ruby.
Yeah. Ruby sounds a bit more distinguished.
Yes, gemstone-ish, higher profile, just more special, which of course it is, and so interesting based on the growing region. Well, there are pretty basic ingredients in the different chocolates, but even so, do you have any challenges with, there's a lot of allergies happening here and the whole gluten craze? Like, how does chocolate fit in with some of those consumer needs?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, better for you and specifically free of allergens is a big topic for us. The good thing is chocolate as such is gluten-free. So that market, that check mark, we have already. So yeah. But then of course, we have milk in milk chocolate and in white chocolate. So dairy-free or vegan, fully vegan, becomes then a bit more challenging. So what we do have is now dedicated part of the factory with dedicated lines and airflows, etc., to really avoid any crossover of milk, where we produce dairy-free chocolates. And of course, like a dark chocolate tastes the same, but we have then also milk-alike chocolates. So what are chocolates where we replace the milk with rice or oat flour, and that gives you a milky resembling flavor, where actually
consistency and that flavor profile without the dairy ingredient.
Exactly, and it's also more sustainable. It's plant-based, so it has a lot of pros to it, and that's extremely popular. And we actually recently extended our range, also making a dairy-free filled chocolate inclusion for ice cream. So that's in one of our factories. We make the mousse tracks or the caramel or peanut cups that you find in ice cream. But of course, all have milk in it. So, but we have now also a range of dairy-free filled inclusions for ice cream, because the ice cream sector is one of the sectors where dairy-free is growing. And I listened to one of your recent podcasts with somebody from ice cream sector that was telling also from that he was working on dairy-free ice creams. So I was thinking he needs to try our dairy-free ice cream inclusions. So,
well, after this podcast, I will connect the two of you so you can talk about that. He's,
Yeah.
I know you're talking about, he looks for innovative ingredients and different ingredients, and they do different recipes all the time. So that might be a great collaboration for you. So exciting
Exactly.
to hear that too. And I've seen the dairy-free ice cream in the freezer section. Didn't know that was such a growing piece of the market for ice cream, but that makes sense because everyone loves chocolate and they love ice cream.
Yeah. And
The
everything is better with chocolate. So
yes.
put some chocolate in those dairy-free ice creams.
You could be a little biased, Mark. You realize that.
I do realize that.
A little biased.
Just
Right.
a little.
Through. Now, so you're in North America, but you are in 65 countries across the world. And I think the classification of chocolate, or what constitutes chocolate, aren't there different regulations in different countries?
Yeah.
I think we're saying.
Yes. Yeah. So worldwide, every country, yeah, European Union, they have one legislation, but for the rest, almost every country has a specific chocolate legislation. So what can be called a real chocolate, with the name chocolate. And actually, the US is one of the most strict legislations worldwide, together with Canada, because where the European community, Mexico, most of the Latin countries allow other vegetable fats besides cocoa butter in chocolate. They so like in Europe, they allow 5% of what we call cocoa butter equivalents in chocolate. In the US and Canada, not. They only allow 100% cocoa butter as vegetable fat. So the only other fat, of course, if it's a milk, is milk fat, but no vegetable fat besides cocoa butter. So in that, actually, US and Canada have one of the most strict legislation.
I did not know that, but that's interesting that some of the other countries allow a different, a little bit of a different kind of fat, not just the cocoa butter fat.
Yeah.
So, well, so we're purists here in North America, is what I'm hearing.
It is, and it was a big debate in the European community that was a bit led by the UK, because they had that already allowed. And then mainland Europe was against it, but then finally they got to it, so they have it now. But the US and Canada never.
We're still the same as we were.
Yes.
Well, you talked about the ruby chocolate, and as you were going through, your normal investigative process, and then discovered this now fourth category of chocolate. So that's one way you innovate. But do you take advice from us as consumers as well? Like, how do you decide what your new products are going to be, or what direction you might want to go with your manufacturing?
No, for sure. We take all advice. Since we are working mostly with customers, so we clearly take the input and the demands of customers. And that's what I call a bit the pull innovation, where really the demand comes from the customer, and the silly example I always give from, I'm looking for a blue filling, so we develop a blue filling for them, whatever it is. So that is more the pull innovation. But then you have the push innovation, where actually we base ourselves on consumer research, on overall consumer trends. And based with that, we say actually, hey, I think we need to have a chocolate that is fully made out of cocoa, no other ingredient, as an example, because that is answering a sustainability trend, an overall healthy trend. What we did then is we developed what we call our whole fruit chocolate. Is a chocolate that is 100% made from cocoa, meaning the sugars in there are actually coming from the cocoa pulp that is in between the cocoa beans. So from the bigger cocoa fruit, you get actually also sugars, and that are the sugars we use then in that chocolate. And for the rest, there are no cocoa fruit ingredients. So
wow, so you haven't added any additional sugar. You're getting it all from the regular plant.
So and that's just one example, but there are then overall, like a few years back now, there was the high protein craze, especially here in the US. So then we developed a full range of high protein coatings. So where we added extra proteins so that on your protein bar, you could have also a nice chocolate on top of it with bringing again also proteins. So yeah, so that is certainly also one way. But where we then go to our customers and tell them, hey, we have a great whole food chocolate or high protein coating that you should try out. While the other one is, yeah, no, the customer is working on a new cereal with a blue filling, and we develop that then for them.
Yes, and keep in mind too that your customers mostly are other businesses, so they might be innovating and need. Yep. I know one of the best parts of a protein bar, for example, is the chocolate coating. I mean, that makes it in some cases palatable, because sometimes those protein bar manufacturers, they need to do
taste cardboard.
Actually, I should say protein bars are so much better than they used to be, because they early in the development of them, when it was a whole idea, I think that the taste profile was not as good and the chocolate was the saving grace. And now the fact that they've improved that quite a bit, but I still like some good chocolate in my protein bar. I love the fact that it's also healthy for me. You know, there are some great health benefits to chocolate. I don't know if you want to speak to.
That's very much true. Of course, I have to start with saying everything with moderation. Am I saying here that start now eating kilos or pounds and pounds of chocolate a day? Probably not. But it has to be said that chocolate as a natural product, one, the cocoa fat is actually a beneficial fat. Even if it's a saturated fat, it is actually a good fat shown through different research. And the antioxidants or the flavanols present in the cocoa are actually more beneficial even than the flavanols in red wine, and have been shown that they give improvement on heart disease, even for your skin, for memory. So different benefits have been proven. And we actually are the first company also that has an registered health claim, and in Europe, EFSA is the FDA from Europe, and with the FDA in the US for so improving the blood flow. That's in simple terms what it does, of our specific processed cocoa. Because you lose normally the flavanols during the process. We have a special process where you keep most of the flavanols, and so that chocolate or that cocoa has a health claim, a recognized health claim for it.
Very nice. I'm so glad you brought that out, Mark, because that is a critical thing. You know, sometimes the raw material starts out with certain qualities, but then those might get destroyed during the processing piece of it. But what you're saying is that you have, your process does not destroy that, and so the health benefit is still existing in the end product. That's even better.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's then a darker chocolate, of course. So it's a bit bitter. And overall, I think, also towards health, the lesser sugar, the better it overall is. So if I would recommend you which chocolate to eat, I would say, eat an extra dark chocolate. Purely health-wise is probably the best. But at the same time, still enjoy a wonderful milk chocolate or regular dark chocolate as well. I can enjoy an extra dark chocolate, but also with limits. Once you pass 80% cocoa, then it becomes a bit too bitter, even for me. So yeah, I'm
kind of with you on that. I can be in the upper percentages, but if it gets up in the 90%, not as desirable for me. The 70 to 80 range, I definitely can do that. And all you need, like you were saying, everything in moderation. Sometimes it's just nice. You might have a craving for some chocolate. You can have just a nice square of chocolate. It's exactly delicious and just satisfies your body for that need. So
it gives you energy as well. So in a dull meeting, eat some extra dark chocolate and you stay awake for the meeting. So also it's good actually for sports as well. before a sports performance. It also gives you energy, clearly. So
Nice.
a
And
lot,
for
a lot
the
of benefits.
health profile, better than chugging down one of those energy drinks. So
Yes,
I would much rather have some chocolate. That would be
exactly,
so much
exactly.
better. Well, we've heard a lot about chocolate this afternoon, and I hope our listeners have enjoyed that. But is there anything else you want to share with us about what you're doing there about Barry Callebaut, or
Much more, of course, but yeah, I think I explained as shortly as possible the process. But yeah, chocolate is made, how we innovate. But yeah, it's really we develop whatever our customers ask us to develop and towards the right application. Because also like ice cream or using ice cream, chocolate for ice cream or a bar is different. Actually, I'm not sure I can say it, but I can. Yeah. No, but we were at actually the origin of the first known real chocolate coating for ice cream. And what is Magnum from Unilever? So we were at the origin of it because the challenge there is, since you eat it at a different temperature, that benefit that I talked about of cocoa butter melting at the ideal at your body temperature, if you cool everything off, it's different and it starts to become a ball of chocolate in your mouth and it doesn't melt that easily. So to overcome that, we actually increased the amount of milk fat in the chocolate because that lowers actually a bit your melting profile. And so with that, you could actually come to a very good tasting chocolate, real chocolate for ice cream. But that's then we can go over about applications, but yeah, it's never a dull moment.
who thinks about that? Like the fact that you really have to think about what the application is, how it's going to be used, what the temperature is going to be, even in transport, what's happening, is it
Yep.
like in the ice cream frozen, or is it, being transported in, what are the requirements? They're just, I one of the things I appreciate about what you did today, Mark, was you kept something that could be very, very complicated. I know that the words you could have used are a lot longer, and you could have gone into a lot more detail about your research and development and the whole process of making chocolate. But I appreciate that you made it understandable for our audience to really be able to dive in and easily determine. Now they know there's 4 different kinds of chocolate and basically what some of the parts of those are. And I think that's really exciting to be able to educate the public and keep people excited about a food that most of us already love.
Can't say it enough. I still love it. Whatever I can do to help spread the word and the love for chocolate, I will certainly do.
Well, thanks for being with us today. I think you did a great job spreading the word and helping other people, continue their affinity for chocolate. I appreciate it. And if you, our listeners, enjoyed this interview with Mark and talking about chocolate, please leave a comment and let us know. Subscribe to our podcast. Take a look at us on YouTube. Let us know what other kind of guests you would like to hear from. We're happy to bring them to you. Until next week, I'm Pam Line-Miller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.